Jaya Shri
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Chaitanya
Krishna,
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda,
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare
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 Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare
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 Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare
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 Hare,
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama Hare
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 Hare.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you everybody for joining today's class. I know Balibardhan Prabhu is not here, but we will start presenting. So we have Sugopi Mataji, Pushpadharini Mataji, Vasaraj Prabhu, Hare Krishna everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So let me share my screen. Hare Krishna, Sugopi Mataji, Hare Krishna.
माताजी मैं पुष्पधारनी बोल रही हूँ.
I'm not able to hear you, Mataji.
Pushpadharani Mataji, Pushpadharani Mataji.
Okay, I can. Okay, yes, Mataji, you want to say something?
No. I was telling Hare Krishna. I was trying to unmute, and by the time mute and mute works, you were like ahead of it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining. So I am presenting today chapter Canto 4, Chapter 3, the talks between Lord Shiva and Sati. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we are, this chapter talks about Lord Shiva talking to Sati. Creation of the fourth order, chapter 3, talks between the Lord Shiva and Sati. Let's first recite the prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswati vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Non-Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And we are learning this with 4 types, Vritti, Panji, Tika, and Bhava. This is the Chatuspati program that Balimadhan Prabhu is guiding us in. So the talks between Lord Shiva and Sati seems like just like a normal regular husband and wife, they talk, and the wife is trying to convince, husband is not convinced, and husband is not convinced because he knows what is going to happen, and that's what the whole chapter is about. So today's agenda is introduction about Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 4, Canto 4, chapter 3. I will also explain how this is linked to Canto 3. We are going to, there are 25 Sanskrit shlokas in this chapter, so it's a very small chapter. The part 2 is Daksha was puffed because of his family lineage, and he was puffed up with his heritage, education, and his material possessions. So he did not invite Lord Shiva and Sati, even though Sati was his pet child. Sati wanted to go to her father's house, and she wanted to pacify Lord Shiva to agree with her to go to her father's house, even though they were not invited. Then Shiva tried to convince Sati to not go because he gave the understanding that your father is not a favorable person to us and he does not, prefer me to go there. That's the reason they did not invite and we should not go uninvited. We're going to read about some of the few excerpts from the purport. Then the conclusion, you don't go to anyone's house without the invitation. We're going to have open discussion and any questions if there are any. The chapter is divided in 3 main parts. 1 to 4, Daksha starts another sacrifice after he, disrespects Lord Shiva. He starts another sacrifice. 5 through 14, Sati tries to convince Lord Shiva to go to the sacrifice, even though they were not invited. 15 through 25, Lord Shiva's reasons not to go for the sacrifice because they were not invited, and even though it was his father-in-law. How this chapter is connected to Canto 3. As we all know, Swambhu Manu and Shatarupa were son and daughter of Brahmaji. They had 3 daughters, Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti, and 2 sons, Uttanpad and Priyavrata. In the last canto, we have read a lot about Kardamuni and Devahuti and their son. In this, Prasuti and Daksha, so the 3 daughters of Swambhu Manu and Shatarupa, Prasuti is one of the daughter and she got married to Daksha. From Prasuti and Daksha, there were 16 daughters and Sati was the youngest daughter of Daksha and Prasuti, and she got married to Lord Shiva. That is how this chapter is connected to Canto 3. So Daksha starts another sacrifice. Can somebody read this shloka? So Gopi Mataji, would you like to read this?
Okay, Mataji. Maitreya uvacha sada vidvishataryevam kalo vaidriyamanayoho jamatuhu swashurasyapi sumahan atichakrame. Maitreya continued, in this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and the son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long period. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So this is after Daksha had completed the fire sacrifice in which Lord Shiva was disrespected and there were back and forth happened between, his disciple Bhrigu and all the other people who were invited there. After that, Daksha and Lord Shiva, for a long period of time, they had tension between them because of that disrespect happened in that first yagna. So thus Daksha, because he starts another sacrifice, when Lord Brahma appointed Daksha as the chief of all the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population, he became very much puffed up because of his position. Although he was very envious and very inimical about Lord Shiva, he was appointed the chief of Prajapatis. So he was puffed up that, even though everybody else is there, I was the one that Lord Brahma chose to be the Prajapati, the chief of the Prajapati. That was the cause of his excessive pride. He became puffed up because of his position. When Prabhupada says in the purports that when a man becomes too proud of his material positions, in this case, Daksha did that, he can perform any disastrous act. It's just a disaster ready to happen. And therefore, Daksha acted out of the false prestige. He began a sacrifice named Vajpaya, and he became excessively confident of his support by Lord Brahma, because every time the fire sacrifice happened, Lord Brahma was there and all the other demigods were invited except Lord Shiva. He then performed another sacrifice named Brahaspati Sava. In 4.3, it is explained. And during the sacrifice, Brahma Rishis, great sages, and all the demigods and everybody, along with their wives, nicely decorated with ornaments, attended all the various parts of the universe. From everywhere, he invited all the people to attend the fire sacrifice. Now, Prabhupada explains in the purport that all the sacrifices are meant to please Lord Vishnu, but Lord Vishnu includes his devotees. He is not separate from his devotees. Brahma, Shiva, and other demigods are all obedient servants of Lord Vishnu. Pushpadharini Mataji, would you like to read from third bullet?
Yeah, Mother. Yeah, sure. So, Daksh, out of pride, wanted to exclude Brahma and Shiva from participation in the sacrifice. Daksh wrongly thought that satisfying Vishnu alone would be sufficient without considering his followers. Vishnu prefers that his devotees be honored first, as emphasized by Lord Krishna's statement, Madhbhakta, Pujya, Pujya Bhadika. Worship of my devotees is better than worship of me. The Lord itself, the Shiva Puran also states that worshipping Vishnu's devotee is superior to directly worshipping Vishnu. Daksh's decision to neglect Lord Shiva in the sacrifice was inappropriate and not in line with proper devotional service.
Thank you, Mataji. So, as the last bullet said, his decision, Daksha's decision to neglect Lord Shiva, he didn't even invite him in the sacrifice, and it was inappropriate behavior and not in the line with the proper devotional practice, because Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, Lord Vishnu does not accept anything unless his devotees are respected. So Sati tries to convince Lord Shiva to go to the sacrifice, because now Sati, the chaste daughter of Daksha, heard heavenly demigods discussing about the great sacrifice being performed by her father. In 4.10, it talks about that. She also saw the beautiful wives of the heavenly demigods, and they were all adorned with the fine clothing, earrings, necklaces, and lockets, and they were all heading towards the sacrifice. So when she started hearing all these people were going to sacrifice, and she was hearing that it was happening at her father's place, she was in great anxiety. And then in that great anxiety, she approached her husband, Lord Shiva, the master of the Bhutas, to express her thoughts. She addressed Lord Shiva, mentioning that her father, Daksha, is performing a great sacrifice. And she noted down that all the demigods that she has seen and heard been invited and were attending the event. She also suggested that if Lord Shiva desired, they both can also go to the sacrifice. And she expressed her desire, her understanding that her sisters are probably attending that great sacrifice ceremony with their husbands and all to see all their relatives. She also desired to dress herself up with the ornaments given by her father. As we all know, Lord Shiva did not accumulate any wealth. He did not even create a house for himself. So he did not give anything to Mother Sati. And that's why she had ornaments given by her father. So she wanted to wear those as well. And she also wished to go with Lord Shiva to participate in that assembly, even though she knows that they were not invited, but she overheard people going there and talking about it. So as a woman, she wanted to go and meet her family as well. Rasraj Prabhu, would you like to read this?
Mata,
Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji. I'm reading. I'm reading. Yeah.
I can read.
Yeah,
That
Sati.
her sisters,
Yes.
aunts, their husbands, and other affectionate relatives were lightly assembled at the
Mataji, Rasraj Prabhu is here. Let him read.
Sati mentioned that her sisters, aunt, their husband, and other affectionate relatives were likely assembled at the sacrifice. She expressed her desire to see them along with the lapping flags and the sacrifice performed by the great sages. Sati told Lord Siva that these were the reason for her strong anxieties to attend the ceremony. 4.7. Sati recognized that the manifested cosmos in the wonderful creation resulting from the interaction of the three materials mode and the Supreme Lord external energy. She acknowledged that the Lord Shiva fully knows this truth, while she considers herself a pure woman lacking knowledge. Sati expresses her desire to see her birthplace once more. Sati addresses Lord Shiva as the never born and the blue-throated one. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So as we can see, as a woman, Sati is addressing that, her sisters, aunts, their husbands, and other affectionate relatives. Particularly, basically, everybody is going except her. And she wants to see her relatives. She wants to meet with them. She wants to talk to them. She wants to engage with them, have a social interaction with them. So that's why she told Lord Shiva that these are the reasons I want to go and I want to meet. It is a strong desire of mine that we should go. And then she recognized that, manifested cosmos is a wonderful creation resulting from the interaction of the three modes of material nature and the Supreme Lord's external energy. So she is telling Lord Shiva that how this material world is created, and she also acknowledges that Lord Shiva fully knows this truth. But she's saying that I'm in a woman's body, and then my knowledge is lacking. But you know everything, that I would like to visit my birthplace, because since Sati got married, she has never been to her father's place. And she also she tries to, pacify Lord Shiva or impress him to let her go to her, father's house. She calls him the Nilakanta, the blue-throated one.
Mataji, who is the Sati in the previous picture? In the middle one?
Yes. Are you talking about this one, this picture?
Yeah, in the picture, middle one is the Sati, or
Yeah, it should be. She's the youngest daughter, Prabhu, but I just took the picture. Looks like she's the middle one in this.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah. So then she tries to observe that not only she tries to again and again try to, convince her husband. She observes that not only her relatives, earlier she was talking about my aunts, uncles, my sisters, her husbands, and everybody is going. Now she's saying not only her relatives, but also other women. Every woman in the whole, universe, they're dressed in the fine clothes and they are, wearing nice ornaments, and they are all attending with their husbands and friends. So as a woman, she's attracted by these kind of social interactions. And she also notes that the flocks of white airplanes, flocks means that, there are multiple white airplanes in the sky, make the entire scene very, very beautiful. So she can see everything where she is standing, that all these airplanes and everybody is going towards her father's house. She addresses Lord Shiva as the best of the demigods. And she questions, how can a daughter remain undisturbed upon hearing about a festive event for her father's house? It is natural for a daughter to be attached to the father's house because she grew up there. Some of her, the childhood memories are there. So she wants to go back and, enjoy with those social interaction that she's missing right now. Sati suggests that even if she hasn't been invited, there is no harm in going to the house of a friend, husband, spiritual master, or father without an invitation. We're going to later see how Lord Shiva counteracts with this argument. She requests Lord Shiva to be kind and fulfill her desire. And she emphasizes that she has accepted, Sati has been accepted by Lord Shiva as a half of his body. So he should allow her to go to her father's place. She even asked that, please be kind to me and accept my request. So the great sage Maitreya describes how Lord Shiva, the deliverer of Kailash, smiled, and he smiles in a response to Sati, whatever argument she was giving him, but also recalled the malicious, hurtful words spoken by Daksha in the past. As we remember in the last chapter, Sachisuta Prabhu presented how Daksha insulted Lord Shiva. So he remembered those, and he recalled those interaction with Daksha and how he disrespected Lord Shiva. Sati, in this purport, Lord Shiva is addressed as Abhava, means one who is never born, although he is commonly known as Bhava, one who is born. So based on that, Rudra, Lord Shiva, because he was born from the eyes of Brahma, who himself was born from the lotus growing from Vishnu's abdomen, making him the Swambhu Manu, self-born. That's why he was addressed as a Abhava, one who has not taken the birth. Sati uses this Abhava word to highlight that Lord Shiva has never experienced material miseries. Material miseries are connection to the family also sometimes. And then she emphasizes that many unrelated people, even though she is related to Daksha, but many unrelated people were going to the sacrifice. So what's the problem going to her father's house while she is closely related to her father? And that is even more reason to attend. Then Lord Shiva, she addresses Lord Shiva as a Nilkanta, blue-throated, because he drinks an ocean of poison, holding it in his throat to protect others. As we all know, when the Samudra Manthan happens, Lord Shiva is the one who accepts the poison. That's the first thing that came out of the Samudra Manthan. The poison produced during the churning of the ocean by the demigods and demons. Lord Shiva drank it to save the other people from harm because it was very poisonous to even touch that poison. So Sati implies that if Lord Shiva could perform such a great act of drinking the poison to benefit others, how he could not allow her to visit her father's house? Because he's so kind, he's doing so many things, he's Ashutosh, and he should be pacified easily, and why he's not allowing her to go to her father's house. On the other side, Lord Shiva is reminded of the harsh words spoken against him by Daksha in the assembly of the universal guardians, which caused him inner sorrow, which emotionally tortured him. Although he smiled to please his wife, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives the example that a liberated person is described as maintaining mental equilibrium. Actually, this is described in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, 12:15, I believe. The person who can maintain in both happiness and distress equilibrium, raising the question of why Lord Shiva, a liberated soul, felt unhappy. 4.16 explains that. Prabhupada also gives the example of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that although Lord Shiva is Atma Ram, self-realized, he is also in charge of the material mode of ignorance, tamogun, which can cause him to experience material pleasure and pain because he is in charge of the tamogun. It is said that in the spiritual world, feeling of sorrow or pain are always mixed with bliss due to the absolute nature of spiritual realm. Whereas in the material world, pleasure and pain are felt as distinct and contaminated by the modes of nature. So there is a difference between the spiritual world pain and sorrow versus the material world pain and sorrow. As an example given, Lord Krishna being chastised by Yashoda, where his tears were not reactions of ignorance, but were filled with transcendental pleasure. Material experiences of pain and pleasure are influenced by the modes of material nature. Whereas in the spiritual world, all varieties of apparent pleasure, pain are eternally blissful. Because Lord Shiva is in charge of mode of ignorance, he sometimes feels sorrow, even though he is self-realized in nature. And Lord Shiva realizes that Daksha's qualities, education, wealth, austerity, and exalted heritage, because he's the son of Lord Brahma, raise the question of how he could exhibit unnecessary anger, which is not required, because he was very envious. When such good qualities are possessed by someone who is puffed up with pride, they result in a negative outcome, because they are very proud of their situation of being the chief of the progenitors, chief of the Prajapati. Daksha was very proud of his situation. Prabhupada gives the example in the purport, milk, though nourishing, becomes poisonous when touched by an envious serpent. In the 4.17, it is explained very beautifully. Vidyadpovita purvaya kule sata guneshadabhir sattametare smrato hatayam bhratamana durdasha saptana pashyatihi dham bhuyasam. Translation: although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, are for the highly elevated one, who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of the great personalities. This is beautifully explained in 4.17, the qualities of a proud person, which is what Daksha happened to be here. Chandravadam Prabhu, can you read this? The qualities of a proud person.
Daksha's qualities, education, wealth, austerity, and heritage should ideally promote virtue, but when accompanied by pride, they can lead to negative consequences. Good qualities like education, wealth, and beauty can turn harmful when possessed by someone who is envious or malicious, similar to milk becoming poisonous when touched by a serpent. Chanakya Pandit's example, a serpent with a jewel on its head is still fearful, as a serpent's nature is to bite even the innocent. So Daksha's material assets become polluted by his pride and envy, despite being inherently good. Kunti Devi prayed to Krishna as Akinchana Gochara, one who is easily approached by those without material possessions, highlighting the spiritual advantage of material exhaustion. Material assets can become glorious when used in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, they remain worthless like zeros without the Supreme One besides them. If material assets are not aligned with Krishna consciousness, then they can degrade and mislead the possessors.
So 4.17 beautifully explains the qualities of a proud person, and it says that education, wealth, austerity, and heritage should ideally promote the virtue. It should elevate you personally. But when a person who is holding all these great qualities becomes proud, they can lead to the negative consequences, which is what happened with Daksha, because he was very proud of his position. So his good qualities did not help him, did not elevate him, but it actually harmed him. And that's why he became malicious, he became envious, and that was similar like the milk became the poisonous, just like a serpent touches it. Even Prabhupada gives the example of Charanyaka Pandit that even though a jewel, a beautiful jewel or a very valuable jewel may be on the head of a serpent, but the serpent never leaves its nature. It bites, even though anybody can be innocent in front of him. It will bite. It will never leave its nature. And that is what happened. Daksha's qualities became polluted because he was very proud of his situation materially. And despite internally being good, he was Brahmaji's son, so he was inheriting very good, culture. Yet, because of his pride and malicious nature, because of his enviousness, he became polluted. And in the purport, Prabhupada also gives the example when Kunti Devi prays to Lord in Canto 1, we heard that Kunti Devi prays to the Lord Akinchana Gochara, the one who is approached by those who do not have the material possessions. And it highlights the spiritual advantage of material exhaustion. Whenever we see somebody is, spiritually very advanced, they may not be as wealthy or as materially opulent, because they are spiritually very opulent. And Prabhupada gives the example that material assets can be glorious in Krishna consciousness if they are used in favorably with Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will degrade you or it will mislead the possessor, because there is a chance that we will become proud of our situation. Material assets, when not used in Krishna consciousness, can become harmful and hinder spiritual progress. Kunti Devi praised Krishna as accessible to those free from material possessions. Gopi Mataji, would you like to read text 18?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yes, Mataji. नैतादृशानां स्वजनव्यपेक्षया गृहान् प्रतीयात् अनवस्थितात्मनां ये व्यागतान् वक्रधियाभिचक्षते आरोपितभ्रूभिरमर्सनाक्षिभिः. Translation: One should not go to anyone's house even on the consideration of his being a relative or a friend. When the man is disturbed in his mind and looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So this is the counter argument from Lord Shiva when Sati said that, we can go uninvited to a friend, family, or, somebody who's favorable. Here, Lord Shiva says that one should not go to anyone's house, even on a consideration of his being a relative or a friend, when the man is disturbed in his mind. And we all know that from last chapter that Daksha was very disturbed in his mind. And he looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. We all know what happened in chapter 2. There were arguments, and curses were given by, even the great sage Bhagumuni. So the raised eyebrows were there, angry eyes were there. So 4.18 explains that we should not go in that type of situation uninvited. The host needs to be pleasant with whoever is coming. Prabhupada gives an example, even a tiger is very kind to its cub. So just like, Daksha was very fond of his youngest daughter, Sati, which is similar, like a tiger is kind to its cub. But just as a parent is expected to be kind to their child, however, the malicious persons like Daksha, they are untrustworthy because they are in their proud stage. They are unstable. Even though the familial ties are there, he knows that Sati is my youngest pet daughter, but still you cannot trust because they are in a not stable situation. Tigers may sometimes harm their own cubs, reflecting how cruel people can betray even their loved ones. So we have seen, how Daksha disrespected Lord Shiva in the last chapter, and that is what Prabhupada gives the example. Even they can even betray their own loved ones. And Sati, that's why Lord Shiva advised Sati to not to trust Daksha or go to his house uninvited, because it would be unsuitable given his malicious nature. He's not going to respect you. He's not going to take you as his daughter. And Daksha was envious of Lord Shiva because of his high position as an incarnation of Supreme and his deep connection with the Super Soul. As we all know, Lord Shiva is the highest Vaishnava, and Daksha's envies arose from Lord Shiva's superior nature and superior respect, particularly when Lord Shiva was given a better seat during the ceremonies. He was very envious of Lord Shiva. And because Lord Shiva was always in constant meditation, he may not see Daksha enter, and that's why he did not respect Daksha. He just respected the super soul sitting in his body. So that actually made Daksha really mad, and he took that as a disrespect to himself. And then his long-standing jealousy and feud happened because of that. The self-realized souls. Do we have anybody else who has not read yet?
I can read more.
Yes, Prabhu. Hari Sankirtan, Prabhu, please go ahead and read the 2 bullets here.
Self-realized individuals like Lord Shiva respect the Paramatma within everyone, not the material body, which Daksha failed to understand. Envious people like Daksha and demons cannot rise to the level of self-realized souls and are constantly jealous of higher personalities without cause. Similar to how some scholars distort Bhagavad Gita's message out of envy for Krishna, atheists and demons are envious to the Supreme Lord and his devotees. It may be argued that Daksha was Lord Shiva's father-in-law. Lord Shiva should have shown respect to him. However, respect is offered to the super soul within, not to the body, as is the practice among Vaishnavas. Even when a disciple offers obeisance to his spiritual master, the master reciprocates, acknowledging the super soul, not the body.
Thank you, Prabhu. So the 2 points here is given that self-realized soul, they respect the super soul sitting in your body, and even the your guru is meeting with you. Even though the disciple is offering the obeisances, even the spiritual master reciprocates acknowledging the super soul, not the body. So even though the spiritual master is higher in the position, he should not be respecting, but he's acknowledging the super soul, not the body. Anybody else who has not read yet? Is Sachisutra Prabhu, he's here? Okay, looks like he's not here. So the respect to a Vaishnava is more valuable than respecting to the Lord himself, because the Lord accepts his anything you give it to him along with his devotees. But we cannot demand the respect. It should come naturally. And similar like that, it signifies the reverence to Lord Vishnu within the devotee. Since Lord Shiva in Krishna consciousness had already respected the super soul, there was no need to offer the additional bodily respect to Daksha. But Daksha was expecting that because Lord Shiva was his son-in-law, he should have respected him bodily. The living entity is constitutionally pure, but material attachment causes identification with the body. Krishna consciousness restores one's original pure state known as Shuddha Sattva. Transcendenting material qualities in this state under the internal potency of the Lord, material consciousness stops and one acts in pure devotional service. Shuddha Sattva is also referred as a Vasudeva stage, the pure stage where the Supreme Lord Vasudeva is revealed. And that is the stage Lord Shiva was in. And that is why he just respected the super soul within Daksha, so he did not get up. But Daksha accepted that as Lord Shiva does not respect him. Devotional service cleanses the mind. It allows one to perceive the Lord, similar to how a mirror is clear, showing the image which is clear. Lord Shiva, always in Samadhi, is constantly offering obeisances to Vasudeva within his heart. So he is constantly in touch with Lord Vasudeva. That's why he's called the highest Vaishnava, because he is always in constant touch with Lord Vasudeva, or he's always in the Shuddha Sattva stage of transcendental material qualities. So he's always constantly reaching with the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord then reveals himself to the pure devotees through his internal energy when pleased by the sincere devotional service. So to please or to see the Vasudeva stage, the pure devotee has to please the Lord with the devotional service. The only way to please the Lord is devotional service. The Lord is adhokshaya, beyond these material senses, and he cannot be realized through speculation. He reveals himself only to the pure devotees, people who has been sincerely serving him by their pure devotional service. Vasudev is not formless, as obeisances are offered to a person refuting impersonal interpretations. In 4.23, Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva responds to Sati, and he affirms that one may visit a friend's house without an invitation, but only if the friend does not judge based on the bodily identification, remains unangered. So the host needs to not judge. So similar like Daksha was judging Lord Shiva here because he does not possess a lot of material qualities. He does not have a house. He does not have a lot of jewelry. He does not have, even he does not dress up nicely. So he was judging, Daksha was judging him based on his material qualities. And that was not nice, because and that's the reason Lord Shiva is advising Mother Sati that because of bodily identification, he is angered, and that's why we should not go to his house. He also states that 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, they can blind people who are proud of themselves, and it can cause their ability to appreciate the glories of the great personalities, and which is what Daksha is going through right now. That is what his situation is, very proud of his material possession. Lord Shiva again gives the arguments to Mother Sati that visiting one's house should be avoided if the host is disturbed and looks upon the guest with anger or disapproval. It is not pleasant to go to anybody's house with this type of situation. He also explains that being wounded by arrow from an enemy is less painful than being hurt by unkind words from a relative, as the grief lingers and tears at the heart. As we all know, If somebody, our family members, tells us things that are not pleasing, they are very painful, and you can keep thinking about those painful arguments for years and years and years. We see so many people go through those kind of situation where things are not forgettable and things are not pleasing, even though so much time has passed. Those hurt, the unkind word from a relative, from a dear one, hurt you the most because you are connected with them, you're attached to them, and that's why they hurt the most. He also acknowledges that even though Sati is the most favorite daughter, she's the youngest daughter of Daksha, but he wants her that she may not be honored because her association with Lord Shiva, because she married Lord Shiva, and instead of feeling he knows that she will feel the sorrow because she is his wife, and he wants to protect her from feeling the sorrow. And he's driven by the false ego, cannot tolerate the opulence of self-realized person and often envy them, similar to how demons envy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As we know, Lord Krishna's cousin Shishupal always used to envy Lord Krishna, even though he knew he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Lord Shiva is giving the arguments to Mother Sati that even though he is your father, you may be very dear to him, but he's not going to respect you right now because you are associated with me. So you should not go. Then Lord Shiva emphasizes that elevated individuals pay respects not to the physical body but to the super soul residing within. And he highlights the importance of the spiritual intelligence over the material possessions. Lord Shiva expresses his constant engagement in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure consciousness, the Shuddha Sattva stage, which reveals a Lord without any covering. And he tells Sati not to visit her father, and that he and his followers are envious of him and have insulted him with cruel words in the last time they visited his father's for the fire sacrifice. Despite his innocence, despite Lord Shiva did not do anything, even though he left that fire sacrifice quietly, still Daksha was not happy, and he said so many cruel words towards Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva warns Mother Sati that if she chooses to go against his advice, it will not be well for her. It will not serve her the best achievement, that's best outcome. As an insult from a relative can feel like a death, someone who is respectable as she is. So if Sati is disrespected, she would feel like the death, right? And next chapter, we are going to hear more about that. That is where the chapter ends, where Lord Shiva tells Mother Sati and advises her respectfully to not go, and then that she will not be respected because of her association with Lord Shiva. Three main principles from this chapter. Point one is Daksha was puffed up due to his bodily identification. Even though his family was great, he was Brahmaji's son, he was identifying himself from the body, and that is why he was very puffed up. As we saw in the chapter, when you have great heritage, education, good family, and all the material qualifications are given to you, but if you mix it with the pride and anger, then it becomes like a milk that has been poisoned by the snake. So we should be aware of our bodily identification and should stay away from those bodily identification that Daksha was puffed up with. The second point is that basic principle is not to go someone's house if not invited. Specifically, if they are the people who are who that they're envious of you and they're malicious and they're untrustworthy and they are not happy, or you don't have a favorable relationship with them, even though they may be related to you, even though they may be interaction may be happening right now, but for sure that they are not at the level where you are going to feel comfortable. So better not to go to their house and invite it. Then just go and feel the pain through that interaction. Point three I would like to make is like Vasudeva's stage of consciousness is to respect the souls The super soul sitting in everybody's heart, needs to be respected regardless of whatever material possessions they have. Canto 4, Chapter 3 talks about Lord Shiva and Sati tries to interact between each other, and then Sati is trying to impress her husband and telling that she wants to go to her father's house where all the fire sacrifices are happening. Everybody else is going, and she overhears that her sisters are going with their husbands, with their relatives. Even she hears that all the other women are going, even though they are not related. So as a woman, she would like to get that association. She would like to interact socially and interact with her sisters, interact with her aunts, cousins, and everybody else. And then Lord Shiva tries to tell her why she should not go, because one, they have not been invited. Two, she's not going to have the favorable interactions because the Daksha is not happy with them, and he is very malicious. He cannot be trusted, and he's proud of his position. There are three categorization I explained for this chapter. First part talks about how Daksha does the second sacrifice and third sacrifice. Second part talks about how Sati tries to convince her husband. And the third part talks about how Lord Shiva gives the counter arguments to Sati to convince her to not go to her father's house, even though, because they were not invited. My understanding is that Sati should have listened to her husband, because he was giving her the, right understanding. What SB is conveying personal realization, my personal realization is, if a person is malicious and untrustworthy, we should avoid going to their house or taking their association. Srila Prabhupada is trying to explain, application, that we need to respect the super soul sitting in everybody's body, not based on their material possession, wealth, heritage, or education, but purely, how they stand on the spiritual realization. So now this is the discussion forum, and let me just. Are there any questions or concerns? Any learning? Sorry, Venugita Mataji, I did not see you. I could not see while I was sharing. So
No problem, Mataji.
So any questions, concerns, learning, feedback?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hari Bol.
The presentation was so nice, and all the important points so nicely, and we have experienced it. Very practical also. So thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else?
So it's a very good presentation. And then, so technically here it's mentioned that, again, so like for example, Shiva was meditating on Krishna, who is Krishna, the Supreme Lord, Super Soul, right? And then he didn't offer his obeisances to Daksha, and Prabhupada makes the comment that sometimes, like even when we are offering our obeisances to spiritual master offer obeisances to us, the Super Soul, right? But then can we take that same different, okay, if I don't offer my obeisances to my spiritual master elderly, but then can I say that I'm offering mentally to the Super Soul? What is it? Can we use it in the same way, not in a different manner, or like is it only applicable for the higher realized souls and not for the lower people?
Yes, I would agree with you, Prabhu. Higher realized soul, because Lord Shiva was on the Shuddha Sattva. He's always in the contact of Lord Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he can do that, but we are not there. We cannot do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, feedback?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I want to ask one question. Only the material possessions had made Daksha to behave in this way, or any other reason? Is it envy also?
It's envy also, Mataji, because he's not happy how, Brahmaji told him to get Sati married to Lord Shiva. He technically did not agree because he was looking at the material possessions of Lord Shiva. He doesn't even dress up nicely. He doesn't even have a house. He doesn't have a palace. So he's thinking about his daughter and he's envious. He's very, very proud and malicious. So that's why his situation is like that.
Okay. And mainly because of bodily identification.
Bodily identification, yes, because he's just looking at the bodily identification. I have this great heritage. I am Brahmaji's son. I'm this, I'm that. I have this materially, I'm the king and I'm this, and all these things are there with me. I have so many jewels. I have, all the material position that anybody could think of at that time.
I think it was a good presentation. The only question I have is like, it says in the purport like Lord Vishnu like would like to have satisfy his all the demigods, but then in our understanding in this ISKCON, like we go only to Krishna, and we understand that Krishna, if we satisfy Krishna, then automatically all the demigods will be satisfied. So how do we understand this situation versus what we understand from the example Srila Prabhupada gives?
So my understanding is that Srila Prabhupada tells that, serving Krishna will satisfy all the demigods because Krishna includes all the demigods, and we are not disrespecting those demigods, right? That's why. Because here, the Lord Shiva is being disrespected, and that's what we don't want to do.
He excluded.
He excluded Lord Shiva. So even though we are not exclusively worshipping the demigods, we are not disrespecting them. That is the main difference here. But Daksha is disrespecting Lord Shiva, and that is why it's not recommended that way. Anybody else would like to add anything to that?
I think one of the, I see a lot of people, especially in ISKCON and even the Vaishnava community, right? We generally tend, when we are, if we don't have a proper knowledge, we really don't give proper respect, right? Except when I was coming into Krishna consciousness early on, that there was a senior devotee. At that point in time, he said that, oh, the way you put comments, like, okay, the demigods are like businessmen and stuff like that. And then, you can say certain things because Prabhupada made those comments, but then the way you make those comments is very, very important, right? Like in the way, the mood that you tell, right? Right. So, and then later on, a few years back, that devotee basically left Krishna consciousness. Now, you could say that maybe because of his mood or offenses, or you could have committed similar offense to somebody else also. It's possible, right? So, and then there is it's like a pastime, like when His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj once went to a Hindu temple program. So the people were Hindu temple for a program. The people were thinking how he's going to, what he's going to do. And then he went to each and every altar and paid obeisances. That's what the devotees commented. And then the point is that even like when we go to Hindu temple, we can always, I think Prabhupada says that, okay, these are devotees of the Lord, and we can always pray to them, saying, hey, help us progress in the Krishna consciousness. Example, if we go to Shiva, we can say, oh, Shiva, you are the greatest devotee of the greatest Vaishnava. Help us to become a good Vaishnava. Or we can go to Ganesha's temple. If you go to Ganesha's altar, you can pray him to remove all obstacles in our path of devotion. So we don't have to actively go and reach out to them. But we do, as a Hindus, we always go to Hindu temples, right? We don't have, we inadvertently end up going there. And then now our mood and prayer should be that at least we should respect them and pray our obeisance system, because we are not at that level. We are like very exalted, like we can be at their level and say, oh, I am greater devotee than you. They are way ahead of us. Right? Krishna says, I am Skanda, amongst warriors, I am Skanda, right? So when, like, so when we go to a temple of Skanda, then we can pray to we can see as Krishna as in him also in a way, right? So I think that mood, as an Indian, we can easily imbibe, but it might be difficult for a Westerner to get that mood, and they might make some incorrect comments. So I think we should be very careful and cautious. Otherwise, we might create some offense because at the end of the day, otherwise we might create some offense.
Yeah, so the mood and our understanding matters a lot. What mood we have, we should not disrespect regardless of demigods or any person. Prabhupada says in the purports that we should respect people based on the super soul existing in their heart. So that is our understanding, and based on that, we should not disrespect anybody at all. What to talk about the demigods?
Yeah, and like I mean, actually, and if you look up, if you read Ramayana, right, in Rameshwaram, basically, Lord Rama himself created a Shivlinga at that point in time and offered obeisances. And then I was just reading some past time or some note I was reading where it was mentioned that when Mahaprabhu was in Varanasi, he used to go to the Shiva temple every day and pay obeisances. So when Mahaprabhu, and then if you go to any dham, basically we have Lord Shiva as the protector of that dham. So, I mean, it's there in our culture. It's just that sometimes we don't realize that, but actually we don't have to actually seek. But if we go there, we should not
disrespect them. Yeah.
Because the same question was asked one time to one of the Sri Vaishnava acharyas, and Sri Vaishnavas are very, very pakka Vaishnavas. Like, they will not look at demigods at all in a way, right? He was somebody asked him, like, okay, if you see a procession of Lord Shiva, what will you do? And he was like, I mean, the comment he made was not very, very good. We don't worship him, but we can just say, like this, just pay mental obeisances and go away from there, right? But when Bhagavatam says Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, then the mood should have been, okay, let's offer obeisances to him, right? So,
yeah.
And again, there are a lot of demigods, but some are positions, some are like not positions, like Ganesha, Shiva, they are not positions actually, right? They are like, in a way, different type of demigods. And someone like Agni or Vayu, they are like positions, or Indra position.
Right.
But the mood that we have towards them could be a little bit different towards that's what we have. But at the same time, we can offer respect. Like we always say, oh, somebody asks a question like, okay, Indra is creating so many offenses again and again. If you read in Bhagavatam, like every candle you'll find him doing something or the other actually. And then Krishna forgives him. Then what are we not to offer a respect side away, right? So
yeah. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing your insight.
Yeah,
Anybody
thank you.
else would like to chime in? Sorry, Venugita Mataji, I should have asked you to read.
No, it's absolutely fine, Mataji. I was as it is on the phone, and then half of the lecture, half of the middle of the presentation, I started driving back home. So it is absolutely fine. No
Okay.
issues.
No
Very
problem.
nicely present, Mataji. That was really good presentation.
Thank you so
Very
much.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
So who is the next presentation next week? Who is presenting next week? Oh, Prabhu is presenting? Okay. All right. So it's about 9 o'clock. We can stop here and I'll stop the recording. Thank you so much for joining. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.
No.
Hare
Vancha
Krishna.
kalpatarubhyasya
Kripasindhuvescha patitanam pavanebhyo Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.